The Florida State Seminoles stay red hot on the recruiting trail.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Florida State recruiting has definitely hit its stride. That has been the theme the last few days, and we even talked about the commitment that was likely to happen today, Earnest Rankins, and it did. We're going to talk about that, the impact of the defensive line recruiting, how the culture has changed, how the recruiting effort has changed, how Terrance Kighton should be the guy that is getting applauded as Florida State's Recruiter of the Year. And by the way, I'm going to have pot roast sometime in the next month in honor of him for how he's recruiting. He deserves it. And we're also going to talk about commitments that just happened, some that I expect to make happen in the next few days based on what the commitment dates are at least listed. Some good news for Florida State, and also some good news that some of the teams that are expected to get guys, or at least did at some point, like Florida, Miami, they're going to be missing on some guys too. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things coming up with recruiting right here, right now. So let's get started with Earnest Rankins. 6'6", 285, can play defensive tackle, nose guard, strong side end in a 3-4. He's that versatile, long, athletic frame that you rarely find at 240, let alone over 280. Georgia wanted him. Auburn wanted him. The SEC in general wanted him. He had a Big Ten, ACC offers. He pretty much could have picked his school. As I noted a moment ago, hats off to Terrance Kighton, but getting a player like that is an entire program deal. It is not a one-person gig. You have to be able to recruit across the board to get elite recruits like this. He's from Southwest DeKalb High School in Decatur, Georgia, which is basically Atlanta. And that's a program that's had dudes forever. It's a school Bowden and his staff hit. It's a school that definitely Jimbo and his staff hit. It's always going to have players. It's just one of those deals. It's a tradition there to play football at Southwest DeKalb. And they've constantly recruited there, but getting this kid makes up for some of the misses they might have had over the years. You could probably say Florida State could have signed a Southwest DeKalb kid based on talent just about any year in the last 20 years. I always have somebody in that realm. But bottom line is you're getting a versatile guy in conjunction with, let's see, that's, what is it, 3 defensive linemen total for, let me check here. I think it's 3 linemen now they got out of the state of Georgia. You got Tico Crittenden, a kid right down the road, and Whitley Cadeau, also Booker T. Yeah, they got 3 Atlanta area kids. Plus they got Luke Francis, the kid from South London. He's going to play at Coral Gables High this next fall. And they've also got James Carrington from out there. And that is a great D-line class. This is the best FSU D-line class. I don't even know how many years back I'd have to go. Probably Jimbo's era. 2015 to 17 range, somewhere in there. It would have been their last really good D-line haul. This is what it's supposed to look like at Florida State. Now, let's just talk about the overall ability. I went back and watched some film. If you really look at Rankins and you talk about a defensive unit like FSU under Coach White and his schematics, where's he going to play? You've got a plethora of options. 6'6", 285, athletic, can change direction. The guy's good bend, good explosiveness, plays hard, he's physical. He's all those things. But where does he play? My answer to that is everywhere. There are plays on his film where he plays nose. There's plays where he'll play 3-tech, moving him around. Like, it depends on the team. It depends on the scheme. It depends on who else for that play is in the lineup. As long as he's learning the playbook and understanding what's coming forth, the other team's scheme, this is a guy, especially if you're going to truly be a hybrid defense, and as I've said many times here on Locked On Seminoles, that's my expectation based on Coach White's background. This is a kid that I could see against certain teams that run a lot of power football, like Georgia Tech, You might play him at end and add another big body at D tackle, at least part of the time. And then on 3rd and 6, you might move him inside. That's fine. Now, against a team that's more finesse, that throws the ball out, Syracuse, that's a good example. Play him at nose, put him in the middle, make it difficult with his hands. Like, this kid's long as heck. I've stood next to him. He's a very big kid. You put him in the middle, that makes passes for checkdowns to the running back, crossers, little pop pass over the middle to the tight end, makes it more difficult. And again, with his athleticism, no offense to interior offensive linemen, but there's a reason he's played there a lot during his high school career. They're not athletic enough to handle Earnest Rankins. Well, offensive linemen at the college level, it's a different deal. They're still not offensive tackles. Pass rush from the inside, there is no replacing how valuable that is. If you can get it, man, super, super big advantage. Quarterbacks have all but no chance other than scrambling and just making something happen with their feet. I can see them going that route. So again, Florida State sits with 5 D-line recruits. One could play, depends. Francis could play offensive line. We'll see. But this is a great start for Florida State's recruiting. Now with this, and I'll go look at the rankings tonight, and we'll see who all else commits tonight. But Florida State should be in the top 10 by some measurements, regardless of where they're ranked. This is the best Florida State has recruited since Norvell has been on campus. I don't know exactly what it is, but they need to bottle it and sell it. With that, I want to transition. We'll talk a little bit about this before and after the break, but Florida State is also trending for some other guys. One's an offensive tackle. I'm going to save that for a few minutes from now, but I just want to remind everybody that recruiting right now, this is commitment city. Like this week and next, there's a ton of guys that they're after. There's probably going to be a few guys that I miss, and there's probably going to be a few guys flip and stuff, end up at Florida State. That's the nature of the beast later on. But like Chauncey Kinnan is supposed to make his decision. I believe it's the 6th, which would be Sunday. Everybody's expecting Florida State. He's one of the best corners in the country. He's out of Booker High School in Sarasota. Trenton Henderson, right before I published this, I expect him to pick LSU tonight. At least it's not Florida. That's something I was going to talk about the next step. I'll go ahead and say that. LSU ponied up. That's an NIL deal. But it sounds like LSU unless Florida makes a late run. But I'd rather go to LSU than Florida. Great athlete. That was one of the guys, though, that I really wanted to see Florida State get. But it's kind of hard to complain about Florida State D-line recruiting right now, the way they're hidden. And they're doing a good job with some guys that I didn't necessarily think about ending up at Florida State. That's what I want to talk about next. There's an offensive lineman that I thought Florida State had no shot, none at getting because of the elite SEC teams that were after him, who his family has ties to and everything else. But we got some really good news to talk about next here on Locked On Seminoles. Ever wish managing your money felt a little bit easier? With Monarch Money, that can happen. Whether you're growing your savings, planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building some wealth. If you think about all the opportunities to save money to buy a car, to start a business, to buy a new couch, get a computer, go on vacation, there's a lot of little things that we do as people, myself included, I'm certainly fallible, that we could probably improve. One of the mainstays of having the Monarch Money app is to see what you're doing in one spot to make it convenient and easier for you to track your spending and to save money. Take the control of your life with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. I truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Now let's talk about some more good news. If everything comes to fruition the way things have here lately, it seems like anything that's trended one direction or the other for Florida State's come to fruition, so we're just going to go with it. I got a message from my buddy Zach Blackerby today saying that it sounded like Wilson Zaire was going to end up at Florida State. And I'm like, wait, what? He's an offensive tackle at Raven Gap High School. It's a private boarding school up on the edge of the mountains in Georgia. They got elite players. They go all over the country. And I had a chance to meet this kid earlier this year on Auburn's campus during a visit. Met him, talked to him for a couple minutes. Great guy. But you talk about bona fide, this is what an offensive tackle looks like. The long arms, 6'6", lean, athletic, 280-something, could put on good weight, weigh 310, no problem. That's what it looked like. But he told me open-endedly. His brother played at Auburn. He's been an Auburn fan for a long time. He's got opportunities at other schools too. He, at that point, had just gotten Bama and Georgia offers and a whole bunch of others, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, all kinds of schools. Never thought Florida State had a shot. Saw that he was visiting. I'm like, okay, whatever. I thought at best they'd finish 4th or 5th. They're trending for him. And this is a kid that like Georgia, Bama, and Auburn won. Schools that are known for linemen. It's bizarre. But hey, here's the deal. If you recruit well by building relationships and you sell a program with the history that Florida State has, there's a chance. And here's the other part. The new offensive line coach for Florida State, Herb Hand, I think, I'm not sure the exact dates, but when he was at Auburn, I believe Wilson Zaire's brother was an offensive lineman for the Tigers. If that is correct, it would make more sense. Again, I don't know the exact dates, but that's a really interesting part of this. And even if it wasn't, the next part here that I'm about to say is still the bottom line. You must build relationships and hit a home run on the official visit if you're going to get a kid that, quite honestly, guys like myself, thought you had no shot at. Congrats to everybody at Florida State if this comes to fruition, and congrats even if you come close. Because, again, this should have been one of those kids just going to, he's got Bama, he's got Georgia, he's got Auburn, he's an SEC guy, he lives in North Georgia. All those things play against Florida State. This would finish out a really good offensive line group. In my opinion, you'd be in a good spot. We'll talk more O-line after Zaire's decision. I want to know what's going on with that before I dive into it. If they get him, you got Mario Nash Jr. last year. You got some other good guys that have transferred in, etc. Florida State kind of looks like a program that knows what they're doing at offensive line. Based on last year, did you think somebody who just tells it like it is all the time, would be saying that this quick? I sure didn't. That is one of the biggest developments in Florida State football that I can possibly think of. Getting national recruits at offensive tackle after the way Florida State played last year, you can't predict that kind of stuff and be sane. They're rolling, though. I mean, they're getting the kids on campus, and it's what I said. Like, if you bring in this many linemen on visits, they had like originally, I want to say 15 scheduled. Roughly 8 to 10 actually took visits, I think, off the top of my head. Now they're cashing in. Hey, man, this is what it's supposed to look like if you're Florida State. It's not necessarily the guys I thought they were going to get. I didn't think they were getting Rankins. At one point, I didn't think they were getting Chauncey Kennan. We'll see if they get him on Sunday. Getting Wilson Zaire, I absolutely didn't think they were going to get done. This is how it's supposed to be at Florida State. This is what Bowden did. To a certain degree, Jimbo. It was a little easier at that point because of Bowden and his group. But Bowden used to upset people all the time in recruiting, doing it just like this. Building relationships, the long, slow grind, and then a really good official visit to Tallahassee, and you seal the deal. Sounds simple, but it is not. It is hours and hours and hours for many different individuals in the back office, the recruiting staff, the head coach, the assistant coach, coordinators, everybody's involved with a kid like Wilson Zaire. And that's how it works, though. Millions of dollars go into this stuff, so I'm not shocked that Florida State is in this spot, but pretty close to it. Because this is what it's supposed to be. And that's why I was so angry with recruiting last year. They just didn't put enough effort into it, and a lot of those guys are gone. One of the reasons they were jettisoned, they sucked at recruiting. It's just true. The on-field didn't help, but you got to be really good at least one of the two. Period. You could be at a lower level ACC school. You still got to be really good at 1 and 2, let alone Florida State. So with that, when I come back, Going to talk about some of the decisions coming up, a little bit more about some of the guys from Florida State, some of the guys that won't be playing against Florida State. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. The next week to 10 days is really important for Florida State because, again, they have several guys that could be making decisions. In addition to that, the other part of this, it's not who you get, it's who your opponent does or does not get. Now, it's a pretty wild ride. And some of the decisions that are going to be made here in the next 24, 48, 72 hours, the info that I have now could completely change. Lord only knows these young men change their minds a lot. That is without saying. But with that, I'm just going to throw out some stuff that I've heard, give some intel. Some of it's Florida State related, but every one of these kids, in some way, shape, or form, either they could play against Florida State or they won't because they're going to pick another school. So this is a little different. I just kind of wanted people to get a little insight on what's going on with some of the recruiting around the country, but some of the schools that are doing well too. I'll throw in a few extra things as well. Florida did get Kendall Gravel today. That's a defensive lineman. Florida State, Texas, Miami, just about everybody wanted. Defensive tackle out of Fort Myers High, big body kid, 6'4", 310. Congrats to the Gators. They did a good job there. But this makes no sense to me. Florida State's not going to get Trenton Henderson, and it sounds like Florida's not either. Again, sounds like LSU, and about the time that I'm getting ready to post this, he's going to make his decision. I would expect it to be LSU. I heard that they ponied up and Florida did not. Why in the world Florida State would not if they made that final group where it's kind of a teeter-totter? No idea. I don't know what the deal is with that, but whatever. Miami's been recruiting linebacker Kosi Akpala from Texas. He's out of the Houston area. Some thought he had a pretty good shot at getting him. Sounds like, though, from what I've heard, Texas is going to get him. That's a pretty darn good player. Devin Jackson, a kid from the Orlando area. Miami, everybody had said Miami for a long time, and I kept waiting for why isn't he committed? Florida went after him. They had a DB coach there. He transferred his services to Miami. I thought, okay, well, then Devin will end up in Miami. Nope. He's going to go out of state. I'll leave it at that. But right now, Miami is not going to get Devin Jackson. The one that I'm curious about, now I have not heard anything on this, but Florida State's definitely in it. It's Cottrell Webb. He's at Collins Hill High School, defensive end, 6'1", 230. He's a little undersized, but he's a really athletic kid. Collins Hill, for those who don't know, that's Gwinnett County, elite program. They've got Deuce Gerald's there. They've got all kinds of players. Really good area for football. It's probably my favorite county in the country for high school football. I'm curious to see where he goes, but Florida State is in his final group. Travis Johnson, a wide receiver out of Virginia, Michigan, Penn State, a whole bunch of ACC schools. Sounded like Penn State at one point, but now it's going to be Michigan, so Florida State will not be playing against him. Bama just got Cedarian Morgan. Florida was probably his second pick, depending on who you talk to. Auburn and Florida were number 2, depending on which day of the week it was. He's a 5-star receiver, but he's going to Bama, so you'll play against him maybe for 1 year. He might play a little bit next year when Florida State played, but he's not going to be as big an impact. Like if he went to Florida, you would definitely see him multiple times. He picked Alabama. Felix Ojo, offensive tackle. Every school in the country offered him. Florida State, I think that they were in it pretty early. I've heard Texas. We'll see if that ends up being the case. Ohio State, several other schools could still be there. The one that is the most difficult by a mile to figure out is Calvin Russell, the wide receiver from Miami Northwestern. I've heard LSU. I've heard Syracuse. I've heard Miami. I've heard Oregon. I've heard Michigan here lately. Florida State allegedly is in that final group. The one that's trending right now is allegedly Michigan after it was all LSU for a little while. I have no idea where Calvin's going. It's July 5th or 6th. It's in the next few days. He's committing. It could be Florida State. I honestly don't know. Out of all the kids in the country that I've interviewed, Calvin is the one that I have no idea where he will sign. We'll see what happens. The other one, and this is a kid Florida State absolutely went after, Derek down there at Chaminade Madonna, the running back, 5-star by all accounts. Visits to FSU, Miami, Ohio State, Georgia. I want to say there's one more in there that he'd already taken, but Texas is the team that has tried to get involved. And I had Alex Dono the other day mention that to me, that he'd heard Texas. And I said, I hadn't heard that yet. Well, I heard some of that today. I don't know if that's smokescreen, but Derek has backed up his commitment date. It was July 12th. I don't expect it to be Florida State either way, but if it goes to Miami, you play against him every year. Now it sounds like maybe it's Texas, but I know his mom wants him to stay closer to home. That's one of those parent fighting with the kid things. I don't know who gets final say, how that works. We'll see. Really good football player. Derek Cooper's a really good kid too. So we'll see on that one. Last bit of news here. Just because these kids are committing this week, and it's a massive week of recruiting. It's the most important week of the year for commitments. Next week still has a lot. July 12th, a week from this Saturday, ton of commitments. July 4th, 5th, and 6th this weekend is going to be quite a few. Notre Dame is going to pick up several guys. Georgia, Bama are both going to do some really good work too. Watch out for LSU to pick up some guys, regardless of what happens with Calvin Russell. There's going to be a lot of major programs that you expect kind of move up the rankings. Watch out for Ole Miss too. They just got a kid out of Duncanville. Did not see that coming. Landon Barnes, really good defensive lineman. He could have went to numerous SEC schools. Picked Ole Miss. So recruiting is buck wild right now. Lots of surprises. Kids going all over the country. Michigan just got a kid from South Carolina that's a defensive lineman that's coveted. It is hard to project in recruiting right now. NIL and everything else, you just don't know. So with that, please like and subscribe to this podcast. We truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your Noles information, especially with recruiting. We will see you again tomorrow on Locked On Seminoles.